So we can start our conference. As you know, the chief of our program committee is Professor Andrzej Kwiecień. Unfortunately, our chief became ill, so it is unable to open this conference. And on behalf of him, the opening of this TN 2020 conference will be given by Professor Tadeusz Czachurski. Professor, microphone is yours. Please open this conference.
Yes, thank you. Thank you indeed. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so let's have the official opening now. Welcome, everybody. I hope that Andrzej Kwiecień will recover soon, but in the absence of him, I have the privilege and honor to open the Computer Networks Conference. After these greetings, I will pass microphone to Piotr Gaj to pass you more details about the conference and the current issue of this conference. And then I will continue as a chair of this session. So just a few facts about the conference. It is dedicated to all activities related to computer networks, distributed computer systems, communications, and teleinformatics. It is the 27th edition of this conference. It is organized since 1994, and therefore, to the best of my knowledge, is the first and the oldest conference of computer networks in Poland. The conference followed the development of computer science in our country, putting together the scientific and industrial communities. This balance between academia and industry was always important to us, and especially to the two people who largely contributed to the conference. Let me evoke here the names of late professors Stefan Węgrzyn and Andrzej Grzybak. As far as I remember, I took part in all 26 past conferences. And I have the best memories, of course, also because of places chosen as the conference sites. And I witnessed the development of computer networks to the present state. Now it is an international conference with well-settled reputation, having program committees, members from all over the world. This year, for the first time, the conference has two main co-organizers. As usual, since the very beginning, our Faculty of Automatic Control, Electronics and Computer Science, Silesian University of Technology in Gliwice, and I announce it with gratitude, the Faculty of Electronics, Telecommunications and Informatics of the Gdańsk University of Technology. Traditionally, it is also co-organized by the section of Computer Networks and Distributed Systems of the Committee of Informatics of the Polish Academy of Sciences, and I am involved in this section. And the conference is officially supported by the whole Committee of Informatics, Polish Academy of Sciences. To conclude, I saw in India that at the beginning of a conference, there is a small processions going to figure of Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, of wisdom, knowledge, truth, to put some flowers and to light a lamp at her statue. So let us also mentally light a candle to our patron saints of knowledge and science, and let us start this conference. So dear colleagues, welcome again. The conference is open. Now the floor is for Piotr. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. I think that our guest from India can confirm this story about the...
yeah, definitely we do. Yeah.
Okay. So Ladies and
It was a
gentlemen.
I was impressed by this custom, so I cited here. It was a very good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very rich and very historical tradition of India. It has very good impact.
Yeah, it could be really nice.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you some facts about the conference, but don't worry, only some facts. It's not too much time. First of all, it is 27th national and 13th international edition. It is a lot of meetings. Yeah, you can see on my slide that there is a lot of dots here. So I think, despite the fact that we have the 13th international, it will be a successful edition online in virtual area, but I hope successful. About presentations, this is some statistics related to our conference. We got lower number of submissions this year because because of coronavirus. This is the first reason, and the second reason is changes the regulations, our local regulations in Poland. So we got 34 submissions for regular session and 18 for special sessions, and we accept 14 for regular and 13 for special sessions. All papers, all presentations will be reviewed by three reviewers per each paper at least for our regular proceedings, and 2 reviewers per each paper for our monographic book. Monographic book in Studia Informatica is our second proceedings. As you can see, these 2 types of proceedings we have this year. The first one is published by Springer. Springer is from Germany. We have 14 full papers. It is not the messages, but 14 full papers, and 1 monographic book, 13 full papers in English. Okay, our program committee. We have 136 members of our technical program committee from 25 countries. These countries are listed on my slide, so you can notice that they are from all over the world. It's really, in my opinion, a big number of members. What is the main goals of our conference? In normal way, it is the main goal is to meet people, meet researchers, scientists, engineers, and other people interested in computer networks, and integrate in order to exchange knowledge and experience, in order to get some connections, to disseminate information about your research and other things, related to your activity in computer networks. Of course, the cooperation is the main point. We had some projects which was organized, which were established during the conference Computer Networks. The main tracks this year, we got the reduced number of submissions, as I said previously. So we run only 3 main tracks: computer network, cybersecurity and quality of service, and queuing theory and queuing networks. Additionally, we have 2 special sessions. The first is devoted to cyber physical systems, and the second is work in progress. It is the special sessions. Work in progress is typical. Each year we have such a session, special session. Okay, so the next point is keynote lectures. I encourage you to hear, to be on such lectures. We have planned 3 special lectures, keynote lectures. The first one is from Marcin Kopczyński from Clarivate Analytics. It is the good point to start our conference because this is the first presentation. Because this is not a science, strict science speech, but it is really connected with our activities. You know, bibliometric and other things is quite important. Your impact to your domains and so on is quite important. So I think this is the good point, good starting point to our conference. The next keynote lecture is from Mirosław Woźniak from Ostrava University. And the last is from Jerzy Konolski from Gdańsk University. Unfortunately, Professor Jerzy Konolski also become ill, and it is impossible to deliver this lecture. So this lecture, this lecture will be cancelled probably. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure it will be cancelled. Additional events. This year we have only one additional event. This is the virtual trip around Gdańsk. Our guide will be professional guide, Mr. Michael Gannon. Believe me, this guy is a professional, and he will be able to tell you a lot interesting things about Gdańsk. Not only the facts, also some photos and stories. So today, approximately around 5 p.m. Will be this virtual tour will be delivered by Michael. 4 or 5, I'm not sure, I can check it. Wait a minute. Yeah, 4:20 exactly, but I'm not sure if, you know, sometimes we have some shifts during the conference. After 4 p.m. I encourage you to join us and attend this trip, this tour. It will be quite interesting event. Okay, Professor Czachurski told you about our partners, so I skip this. And the last thing, almost, many thanks. I want to say thank you for all authors. You know, this is the conference, so authors is the most important part of this conference, of general conference. I want to say thank you to members of program committee, as well to members of organization committee, because they made a lot of work to prepare such an event. As well, I want to say thank you for partners and co-sponsors. They are also support for us. As well, we have some volunteers and, of course, to you, to all participants. Thank you very much. And at the end, I want to tell you some information and kind request. Generally, during the session, the speaker will be enabled as co-host. Then you can share your application window or screen simply. So our technical support will enable you during each speech. Yeah. I have a really big kind request regarding the time. Please try to stick the time limit because, you know, time is crucial during the conference. So we have 20 minutes for presentation and for questions and answers. So I suggest you to make your presentation in 50 minutes and 5 minutes will be for a question and answers. We also encourage you to turn on your camera while speaking, because, you know, it's good to see the speaker. And as well, I suggest you to I suggest using headphones if you have. It is better quality when you use such a device. So try to consider such a headphones and external microphones. Okay, what next? I want to tell you one more thing. We have scheduled a common picture. Common picture is a traditional picture. In our case, we also take such a picture from of all participants. Yeah, but in this case, we have Zoom session. So please connect to our session approximately 4 p.m. and we will be able to make some print screenshots to make such a common pictures. Of course, connect and turn on your cameras, because this is quite important to make such a, let's say, common pictures. So it's all what I want to tell you at this moment. So Computer Networks Conference, as Professor Czachurski said, is open now. And the first session is the chairman of the first session is Professor Tadeusz Czachurski. So please, Professor, the floor is yours. Yeah, thank you. Professor, your microphone is off. Please turn on your microphone.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry. So, as you said, we have now a special session with one keynote speaker. This is Mr. Marcin Kapczyński from Clarivate Analytics, and the title is Web of Science and in Cities, Bibliometric Way to Measure Research Impact, update on newest developments. And we have 45 minutes for this session. Then we will immediately continue with session A1, computer networks. So please, we are listening to you, Mr. Kapczyński.
Thank you very much. I'm just trying, please, to share my presentation. I hope you all can see it. Please confirm if it's if it's available. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm ready to start. Okay. So thank you very much for the invitation. It's a really pleasure to be with you. Unfortunately, in these conditions, not in person, but it's really great to take a part in this conference, and also thank you for this honor to make this first presentation. And as Piotr said, it's a good topic to start with, because the measuring of a research impact actually involves all of us. So it's not related to the domain strictly you probably are in, but it is reflected to our academic or research professional lives. So what we are facing is many stages of the research evaluation processes, and what I would like to propose and to tell you in this presentation is how you can do it efficiently. I hope it's going to be practical sessions, practical in that terms that you will learn something that you can really use in your life. And I'm of course open for any questions. That my role is to consult you with any solutions. And please feel free to ask any questions. I hope we will have some time at the end to answer that one. So I focus on some topics, let's say. I would like to tell you about the metrics and the data we use for this research evaluation. Of course, I'm representing the company Clarivate, formerly Thomson Reuters, that is producing, is offering the Web of Science database. And I'm pretty sure that most of us know the Web of Science, as we know impact factors. There is also the tool that helps, it's subscribed by the Polish ministry and many governmental agencies across the world for research evaluation, for complex research evaluation, and it's called Insights, Benchmarks and Analytics. And I would like to present those two tools and tell you what kind of analysis, what kind of a data it is consisting, the data about the research output of every us of the researchers and institutions. So This is what I would like to propose. It's very important when we do any kind of comparisons and evaluations to do it wisely. And there is a huge need for normalize things. So we need to do in a context, and I would like to also to present some thoughts on that one. We are just in the before a few days before releasing new metrics for journals, so-called journal impact factor. It's going to be next week. Next Monday we will see the new impact factors for the sources we are publishing with, and I believe it's still very important for the community. So I will also mention something about the impact factors and the metrics for the journals, and something I left for the very end, and I really believe that that's very milestone for this history of a tracking research impact. It's called Publons. It's a profile portal for the authors and reviewers. And I know that there's many people that use that one already and with a success, but if you're not, I'm pretty sure that you will like this idea of showing your research impact while in a community. It's very important and it's very beneficial for us to do it. So this is the last point of my presentation. So what I would like to start is with this conclusion is that research evaluation is increasing. It is increasing, and it's getting more complex. And it's mostly conducted on the bibliometric methodology because it's quite objective. It's easy to count and measure. I know that is also the peer review process, and we will not substitute that one at all. But we know that there are many things that are based upon this bibliometric methodology. And the Web of Science and Insights supports this. And I'm not going to be modest to say that the Web of Science is probably since 1955, when this first science citation index was invented by Eugene Garfield, some sort of a golden standard for this evaluation. I will tell you briefly why. What kind of a data is collected for this research evaluation? So we all know that that there are publications, right? So there are publications, the papers, the articles, the proceedings that we are taking part in, and the books we are producing, the grants as well. And all of those have a metadata, the metadata that are hidden sometimes, but they are used in these tools like Web of Science or Insights. I'm thinking about the metadata, about the document types, about the authors, about the number of the documents, citations, all the bibliographic metadata, like the source of a publication, if it's an open access, if it's not, what is a publisher, and what's the organization it's coming from. So all of those are combined, even the grant funding information, they are combined in a Web of Science and are produced, offered to see, to view, to analyze. So that's quite important. So let me start with this justification about using the reliable metrics with reliable data. Web of Science is claimed to be the data, to be the database with that really cares about the hosted content, the content that we have in it. So you probably know that it was, and I think it still is, quite difficult to get into the Web of Science because the Web of Science is very selective about the content. So whenever the content is, whenever the journal, the conference, the proceedings, the book is invited to be in the Web of Science, it must prove that it represents the quality and the impact in itself. So core collection, the main index of the Web of Science, the heart of the Web of Science is like over 21,000 of the journals. There is like 100,000 of the conference proceedings, over 100,000 books, and there are millions of records. It's over 65 million records at this moment, and it all comes with the cited references. So whatever is cited as a bibliography in the document, it is in the Web of Science. There's many people that are interested in this quality criteria that the journal proceedings or book needs to meet to be in the Web of Science, and I have listed here. So these presentations will be available for you just for the purpose of, let's say, upcoming submission for the evaluation, or if you're interested, please use that one. On the right-hand side, you see what kind of criteria are used. So there's a really, it must be quality of a language, quality of publications of the productions. There needs to be all the metadata included. There is an ethical statements, very important in the age of the predatory journals. And those journals which are the sources, which are multidisciplinary and international for from all the perspective, it's hosted in this database, and this database is used in this analytical tools called Insights. Right, so let me start with a Web of Science, which I believe is the most familiar for for majority of community of attendees here, I believe so. And just what I would like to tell you about what I start with, about the different metadata that is captured within this database. It's here. So when we have the article, which looks like this is the PDF, I just downloaded like a free PDF. I can see. So the Web of Science captures all the authors. That's very important to have all the authors for the publications. And there might be one author, which is currently quite rare, but there might also be like a 500 authors, and all of them needs to be there. So like a must be a condition be included in this metadata. So there is also some new development which can tell you who is the first author and who's the corresponding author, which also might be important for the evaluation. So with the name of the authors, we use this identifiers, and I will speak about the identifiers because this is also the need of the times, that we need to disambiguate our names, especially if someone has a popular name. There is a like identifier that comes along with the name, and I will speak about it more later. And obviously there's like some bibliographical data. So we have an abstract of the publication, we have keywords, we have some more information, and here are the affiliations. So if we have like 100 authors, 500 authors, or even 1,000 authors, all of them needs to have the affiliations because it's very important for the evaluation in terms of the research out of the institution as well. And we also do the unification of the names. So when there is a, let's say, freedom for the authors to use affiliation they think it's relevant and appropriate, like I'm talking about the acronyms or the local name, local language name, we unify them under the official name. Funding information capture, I mentioned that we also can search, we could search via the grant numbers and so on. And the most important ones is the citation network. And this is like the core of the Web of Science. So whenever the document is cited, we can see who is citing that one, how many times. Also the reference are captured. So we know how the document, how the research, the study have influenced or impact the society. And as you know, the bigger influence, the bigger impact, the better for the author and for the research. So it means that this is a highly cited paper, and it's evaluated, gets more point, and it's more gets more credit. So when we, okay, and it comes with the references, and the references are actually counted already in the billions. So that's a pretty big set of documents. So just briefly about the citation network. So we can analyze it forward and backwards. You know, and as I said, the idea is the more citations we have to the paper, that the paper is more important for the community, and it reflects, it is reflected also in the journal metrics as well, or the institutional position in the ranking as well. So when we search, that's the screen from the Web of Science. When we search, I search, on that case, I search for the organization, but we can search for the topic, for the conference. We can search for our conference as well to find the papers which are included in the Web of Science. And you can search for the people, for the authors as well. And this is, I think, is the most commonly used, but I start with organization. So I search for the Silesian University of Technology to find 90,000 papers, almost over. And there are some papers that are, and this is sorted by the time cited, as you can see. And I found that there is some highly cited papers that recently have reached this like 1% of the citation in its own discipline. There are some hot papers which claims to be getting many citations in a very short period of a recent few months. There are some open access, obviously, documents that you can easily retrieve from the Web of Science to find the PDFs. This is what we do. We capture the open access documents and tell you the breakdown, so you could access it with no cost when it's possible. There are some documents with the data, associated data that normally don't go into the article, but they are associated with a study. And as you can see on the right hand side, there's a time cited count, and also there is something that you can consider as a usage count. So citations needs time to be reflected in the Web of Science, in the databases, but the usage, like a downloading, putting in the reference manager, can also be captured, so we know how this is used and popular. And of course it might be sorted, so you can sort it. So as I said, the Web of Science is used most likely, I would say, for the author search. And we have the new developments to search for the authors, because it was difficult in the past, especially for the popular names. And as you see, I have a Professor Novak here from the Silesian University of Technology, who has this author identifier. It's visible on the top. You see Web of Science Researcher ID. You're probably familiar with the ORCID number, and it's synchronizing. It's analogical to Web of Science Researcher ID. And we know his publications because they were all tagged with this number. And I can tell you that his number of a publication in Web of Science is 117, and there's a H index, there's a sum of citations and citing articles. And if I will click here for the view full citation report, I can go strictly to analyze it further. So you can see how many citations per year, how many documents per year, and so on. So this is a classic, like a simple version that you can export, and it's probably used by most of the people in terms of the applying for the grants or the promotion. And this is what is used in many evaluation tasks and policies. But if you would like to provide more data, you could go to Insights, and Insights is also available in many subscriptions for the university. It's called Insights, Benchmarks and Analytics, and you can, if you go to the webofscience.com, you have a link to Insights, and the Insights provides you more metrics. And I apologize if it's not clear enough, but in the Insights, that just only print screen, that you can see that this is so-called researcher report. It's a special module in the tool that if you put the person identifier, we use the identifier, author identifier, because it's more accurate than the name in that case. So if you put that one, you can see how many publications, in which disciplines, what are the impact factors for these publications, if there are any, what is the quartile of these publications, and many more. You can also see like the collaboration network, which is very important. And there are programs that are supporting and enhancing and encouraging the universities and individuals on university for the better collaborations. And this is quite important. It was proven by the studies that if we collaborate internationally, like this conference is very international, which is really good, we have a better impact. It's a better range of impact, and it's more important globally than locally. And as we see on this particular analysis, we see the collaboration of an author with a different universities. We also can measure how impactful it is in terms of citations, not only the documents or this normalized metrics that I will speak later. So what you can see on the left-hand side is some additional metrics like a document in first decile, which means 10%. So in each disciplines, we can assess what is a top level of the citations. And for this case, 125 documents, there's over 12 documents which are in those top sector of the top cited documents, which is really nice result. Also, there is a level of a collaboration and something like a level with industry collaboration. So we know there are like industry units, the companies, the private sector companies that also cooperate with scientific work, with academics, and we can see them. So that's really nice to analyze it further. And all of those, you can click on the view the data to see what kind of documents they are and so on. And if we think about analyzing the institutions, which is taking place on many occasions, mainly for the, let's say, the authorities level. So if there are like research offices on the universities or the rector's office, they're really keen to see how many, or what are the disciplines that are performing well, how is the performance of the citations of the document publications, are we choosing the local journals for publications or the international journals, how are the, let's say, top stars for the community. And this is also done with the insights. When we put the name of the institution, we select the dates we want to analyze it, we can find those indicators. And also, there's a much more that I'm showing here. There are just few examples that I took from this, let's say, generic report, but I can also tell you what are the strongest domain for the universities, right? In terms of quality, and also in quantity, like a number of documents, and also in terms of the quality. So there is an indicator that I will introduce in a few moments, which is called category normalized citation impact. It's just a normalized impact by category that will show you if we performing better than expected or just average or worse than expected in the names, in the manner of the citations and the impact. And there are some other indicators that are used, like the, let's say, not strictly bibliometric indicators, like teaching reputation and so on. So this is also used, and the collaboration network also visible for this one. Okay, so why I'm talking so much about the normalizations? Because we know that if you want to do the evaluation in a justified way, it needs to be done wisely in a comparisons, in a benchmark with own domains. And I will give you an example. That's the example I just create. Like there's two academics, two researchers on one university, and for sake of methodology, let's assume they are from the same disciplines. Yes, so they are colleagues. They are not publishing together, but they are colleagues, and they have the similar amount of the paper. I mean, exactly the same amount of the paper, which is a 10. So all of them, both of them have 10 different articles. And you can see on the top in those stars, the number of citations for each of them. If we look under Professor Adams, our main character here, you see that he has like a 35, 28, 24. Each of the paper is cited in a, let's say, in a decent manner, right? So if I will count the time cited, is 160 for all the documents. And the average citation per paper is a 16. It's an easy calculation. So we see that like there is a 10 papers with 160 documents, and the average is a 16. Then we have his colleagues, Professor Jones, And as you can see, there's the citations are vary a bit, I think radically, because there's only 3 cited documents. And so the cited non-cited rate is like a 30% only. And there's one paper which is cited heavily 153 times, and some of this time cited is the same as in the case of Professor Adams. So we have like 160, and the average is exactly the same. So it's like you taking just only those, let's say, 4 indicators, including the names of the professors. We have like, it's really difficult to compare. And I used to ask this question, who is the better performing author? Who deserves the promotion? And it's really difficult to answer that question, although the people tend to say that the Professor Adams is better because he has more citations. But then the Professor Jones has the one document which was heavily cited. Actually, we don't know what is the reason for that. Maybe that's a document that was very controversial, and it's really difficult to tell right now. But there are some indicators like a Hirsch index, and I'm pretty sure you know that one as well. So which says what is the, let's say, I won't say the average level, but what is the minimum level of a citation for the set. So we see that if the H index is 8, it means that this author has the 8 papers that were cited minimum 8 times. In this other example, there's a H index equals 3. So we know there's only 3 papers cited minimum 3 times. Yes, and if there is only 1 paper cited even 1,000 times and the rest is not cited at all, there's H index will equal 1. So what I'm saying here with this slide is there's many indicators that we should consider in the research evaluations, and they are just like, say, I would say the things without taking the domain under consideration. And I can tell you, I don't want to scare you, but there is I think it's like over 40 different indicators that might be used in the research evaluation. Obviously, we don't use all of them, but I'm just saying that they are more like this. And maybe I will introduce you some more here. Not all of them, don't worry. So what I'm saying is, like, if there is a document that is cited 20 times, and the question is if it's a good or bad, it really depends on the context. So if the context of the disciplines, category, journals, document time. So you can see that there's a different citation behavior in the different disciplines, even in the similar domains. So we can take like engineering, and then within the engineering, there will be many different subdomains that we should consider. The time is very important because the new articles obviously aggregates less citations than the old ones, but it depends on the discipline as well. The medical science are quite different here, let's say, with a comparisons to mathematics, and the document times also. So the reviews aggregate more citations than the articles. And the source is also important. So this tool I was presenting, I was talking about, which is called Insights, Benchmarks, and Analytics, is considering many of those in the one place, and we can combine, we can play with them. And this picture reminds us that we should compare apples to apples, not the apples to pears or oranges. I'm just saying that it needs to be done wisely, and it might be done. It's not really difficult, to use it. You don't have to be PhD on bibliometrics, but I'm just saying it's quite important to know it. I will give you some more examples how it was proved within the insights. That's I took from the tool. So the first thing is I'm showing how the age of the publication is determining the number of citations. So on the vertical axis we have a citation impact, and on the horizontal axis we have a publication years. So you can see, like, for these disciplines, I don't really reckon what is the disciplines, but it really doesn't matter. So there's a time that there's a peak of citations, and then there's let's say there's a less citations forward, right? And it will be changing through the time. So it's quite important when to measure it, in what time frame we are considering. What I can also propose is a different document types, and you can see for this same domain, we see the 4 different document types. So it's articles, reviews, editorial materials, and proceedings, right? The proceedings are on the bottom, so you don't see that the proceedings are not really expected to have so many citations as the reviews, and the reviews are really on top of that. Obviously, it depends on the discipline as well, but I'm just saying that it might be important. Right, so we need to consider that one as well. And there is something that it's also really interesting to show, and I really like to see it, how this is changing within the disciplines. So we have a different disciplines. We know that there is a life science disciplines, there's a medical disciplines, physical science, technical science, social, art, and humanities. And I can tell you that I'm happy to present before you, because it's much easier to convince someone for the idea of this measuring of the citation impact. For the people from the, let's say, science, strict science, like the engineering, physics, mathematics, chemistry, than people from the social science. I hope I didn't offend anyone. I'm just saying, like, the people from the humanities don't see the value in it, because the citations are really not really frequent. Yes, and for, let's say, philosophy or the law, it's not working like this as it is working in the other sciences. So it needs to be important. For example, impact factor. Impact factor is not counted for the arts and humanities, and there is a reason for that. It's not counted by Clarivate, because we know that it doesn't have a really importance. There's other things that we should consider in those domains. The other interesting thing is, and this is exactly what I was saying before, how we can compare those different areas. And I really like the example of the mathematics, because mathematics is the this kind of, let's say, strict science disciplines that is getting the citations through the time very heavily. So in the mathematics journals, we have the citations for the documents older than the 5-10 years, right? It's growing, and it's in the journal citation report, there is a metric called cited half-life, which means how many years, what is the time frame that the journal getting the most of the citations. And let's say in the medical science, it's like 2-3 years back, and the mathematics is more than like 10 very often. And what I'm saying here is, like, it's really worth to compare that, and just to have awareness that it's different, and just to be patient if you are representing this kind of disciplines that are needing more time for citation to show up. All right, this is here I would like to tell you something about this normalized metrics we use. And you remember I mentioned that name. It's called category normalized citation impact. So if you go to Insights and you pick any document from this 65 million documents, and then all of those documents are calculated via those angles. And here's the publications I would like to present as an example, which has 20 citations. And these 20 citations have been given to this document since 2014, because that's the date when it was published. And this document was published in the journal called RISE, and the research area is agronomy. So it's like an interesting example, I guess. And we see there is 20 citations, and I'm leaving you with a question if it's a good impact or just average or maybe weak. And to answer that question, I would compare that with something which is called category expected citations. So how we calculate this category expected citations? So we took all the documents published as a reviews. You see, it's a review document type in 2014 in this discipline called agronomy. I don't know how many of them were, but probably something around hundreds of thousands, maybe millions. And then we calculate what is the average impact for all those kind of documents. And we know that is a 29.88. So that's the average. So if the document has a 20 citations, it's actually below the average that is expected for this category. And it's the measure is 0.66. And we know that the average is a 1 in that case. So it used to be claimed that the 1 citation per document is the average because it's a 1. I'm just saying it's a simplifying things, but I'm just what I'm saying here is like a 1 is the, let's say, the baseline we should reach. So in that case, we know that this article might have more citations, but for this journal, also it's important how we measure. So you must understand that if I will publish in the very top well-known journal like Science, Nature, I don't know, IEEE journal, some of these journals, I'm expected to have a big citations number count because it's a well-known journal. It's probably going to be different with, let's say, some not recognized well journals, and this is also counted. So I can tell you what is the citation count for this one, and also it's given here, right? So this is an example of a document. I'm aware of the time, so I'm sorry if I'm going too fast. But I'm just you know, introducing this here, and you can check it yourself with an insight. So as I'm saying, all those data are available, so you can compare this on the article level, or you can compare it on the author level for the sets of the documents, for the group of an authors like department, institution, country. So those levels are available, and then we can measure that. And that's the idea of the normalizations. So as I said, there's many metrics that we can use for this evaluation. You know, if you're happy, I can tell you what kind of metrics are used in this, let's say, national evaluations. I'm from Poland, I'm Polish, so I can tell you about the Polish evaluations, but from your countries might be different. But they are quite similar. So this is just one funny example I think I found for combining a group of metrics. So let's say I select the, let's say 2 different departments or the group of people, and there's one group which is like 114 documents. There's one group of 8 documents, and I compare the citations to these 2 groups, and I see, okay, that's quite comparable, and the citation impact and most of those metrics are similar. But then I see if I will go down, and I can do it with this is also provided like a number of a citation per document. Then I can see that for the group A, there's a really just a small number of documents. Yeah, so you can see there is a small group of a number of documents that have sorry, it's a group B actually, that have more than what is it, 40 citations, right? So there's a small group that aggregates. There's only 1 to 50 documents that aggregates all the disciplines, and it's opposite, slightly opposite for the group A. So the citation distributes also matters. At the very end, I will recommend you some reports that were made by our Institute for Scientific Information, which is like a think tank. And there's some really interesting reports about how, for example, is the author distribution measured for different disciplines. Like we claim that there are some disciplines that there is like a multi-authorships, quite common. I can tell you that it's not so true, but there's a few small margins of those documents. But this is the many different angles that you can investigate. I'm just please forgive me if it's too detailed here and too overwhelming. Just this is an example. The arrows indicates those documents. There's just only few documents that have aggregates. There's so many citations, right? And we can see that there's so many documents for group B that really don't have citations at all. So there's like a 0 citations for this 180 documents. There's a 40 that don't have a citation at all. So this is what we can also investigate, and we can combine those metrics. Like, you know, you can combine this different, if the H-index correlates with international collaboration, for example, on the open access, we know it's true that if you publish with an open access journals, you will have more citations probably than if you publish in this, let's say, restrict journal. But there are many, many different factors that you can use. And I can tell you, there are some people that are experts in this and they know what to do to increase their positions in that. So there's I think there might be an even manual, like a guidelines, what to do to get the many citations. Yes, so to publish in the internationally, in the top journals, in the open access journals, in this certain disciplines, and so on and so on. So this is, I'm just giving to you. Right, let me speak briefly, like 2-3 slides about the JCR, which is coming next year, as I said, new release. I hope you're all familiar with the journal impact factor. It's quite important to know how to find it, and I would like to recommend you the page, which is called Master Journal List. I'm sorry I didn't include the link here, but I hope you will remember Master Journal List. It's the mostly used common website where you can find everything about the sources that are indexed within the Web of Science, together with a number of publications frequency, the journal name, journal website, the journal impact factor, and even the APCs for the journal if you want to publish within. So the journal impact factor, just very briefly, is the calculations of the citations for the 2 before years in the 2019, right? So that's the current calculations we will use. It's important to divide it, to do it also wisely. So we take citations for all the documents, even those that are not really linked, and we divide it by the number of articles and reviews only, right? So that's the calculations. And then you can see, you can measure this within the, so here's an example, like a 2.42 is for the journal from the, let's say, social science, education, finance, and policies. And it's not, in comparisons to the, let's say, medical journals, it might seem low, but it's actually a good performing journal for this domain. Yes, so it's a Q1, the first quartile, and it's really good, well pointed. For this journal from the medical sciences, there is a higher impact factor, but you see it's a quartile is lower because there is a more journal and the expectations of the citations are higher as well. Okay, and here's something I would like to also introduce you to. It's called eigenfactor score. And the eigenfactor is one of those metrics that is not really quantitative metrics. So it's not only measuring the citation, but also measuring where is the citation coming from. And you see there is, I sorted, like I picked a set of 2 groups of journals, and I resorted by the impact factor and I resorted by eigenfactor. So if the eigenfactor is higher, it means that this journal was cited by the, let's say, more impactful other journals. And briefly, I'm just giving you that one because I think it's practical to know. So if you have an eigenfactor, you can use it to analyze what is the probability of being cited, because it's the publishing within the journals. Because
excuse me, we are approaching the deadline.
What is the deadline then?
In 2 minutes.
Okay, I got it, 2 minutes. Thank you so much. So just very briefly, I'm reaching the end of my presentation. I just want to tell you that I understand that it's quite difficult to demonstrate your impact with a number of publications. There's so many portals we are obliged to be registered, like or some of them. I just would like to leave you with the information about this Publons profiles. Just please, if you don't use the Publons profiles, just please be aware that there is a place that you can register, simply register, and you can put information about your publications. They will be easily imported from ORCID profile. It's synchronizing with ORCID. They will be easily imported from the Web of Science, whatever you have your publication, the database. If you need any assistance, I'm happy to help. And then you can, in this portal, you can also, that's a new thing, you can also put the information about your peer reviews. So there was no, in the history, there was no place that you could present and advertise your peer review activity. So I'm just saying that it's like new things, and it might be also included. And we know how important is that one. And it might also be included in the upcoming research evaluation. So if you want to highlight how many reviews you did, then the Publons is an answer. And then with the Publons, you can create very quickly. It's a free open portal, just to be sure. You can easily create your citation report, which might be exportable about your H-index, about citation, and many, many more documents. I said in the presentation, I'm leaving a link for those reports that you might find interesting. The one is called Profiles, Not Metrics. It's I found it very interesting how to see all the complexity of the evaluation. And I'm also leaving a link for I'm just presenting the group that is helping with understanding these processes. So there's some materials that you might find, even with live trainings for these products, if you're interested in gaining some more knowledge. And obviously there's a contact for myself. I would be happy to speak with you again. If there's any more questions, just please reach out and let me know. With that said, thank you very much. I just finished my presentation. I'm sorry for this rushing. I hope I managed in time. Yes, Professor. And I don't know if there are any questions. I'm happy to take it.
Thank you indeed. Short questions for the moment, if they are.
Yes.
Yes, please.
If you're asking the question, please unmute your microphone because we don't hear anything. Or maybe you have something in the chat. No? Okay, can you please raise your hand if it was interesting enough for you? There's a button to do it, I guess. I can see who was listening then. If it was interesting, please, can you click on a yes? All right, thank you so much. Thank you, that's really... Okay.
Thank you indeed, and we should continue. So we stop. We know much more now about the topic. So thank you, and now let us continue. That means we start the next session, and we have it is track A, session A1, computer networks, and we have 3 presentations, 20 minutes with a discussion each. And the first one is a revised Gomori-Hugh algorithm taking account on physical unavailability of network channels. And it is the authors make an international team from Technical University Vienna, Austria, and from Lviv Polytechnic National University in Ukraine, of course. And these are Winifred Autzinger, Kwitoslava Obelowska, and Roxoliana Astoriarczuk. So I guess it's Roxoliana who will present the...
Yes, I will present. Can I share the screen?
Piotr.
Yes, you can share your screen. Yeah,
okay.
You have the proper rights. Yeah. Try to simply share your presentation.
Oh, a moment. Here.
Yeah, you are connected. Yes, we can see.
Okay.
Yes, we saw the slides,
yes.
And you also. So please continue.
Yeah. My name is Roxoliana Astoriarczuk. I am from Institute of Applied Mathematics and Fundamental Sciences of Lviv Polytechnic National University. And I want to present a common work, a revised Gomori-Hugh algorithm, taking account of physical unavailability of network channels. Before I start, I want to say some words about, due to my opinion, everybody of us, each moment can take phone or can use the computer, and in the other end of the world, somebody will hear us and so on. And we never think how this connection go on. And this practice laying of channels on the road of oceans, underwater, it is very old practice. This practice goes across back to the 19th century. The first attempt was done of flowing channels of 1847. And this lowering a cable is a long and very laborious process because it must be, of course, first of all, cost effective. And also in the case, if you make a channel between different countries, it is necessary to obtain a permission to use a coastal waters of this or other country. And also some geological exploration must be done, evaluation of seismic activity, the probability of underwater landslides and other natural disasters in the region will be carried out our works. And also very important is the role of the forecast of meteorologists. The terms of works were not broken. And lowering of cable process, it is a very hard process because a kilometer of a cable can weigh more than 1 or 2 tons. And lowering cable on a special ships, they put to the special things, can take up to 1 or 2 weeks, and a process of laying the cable between, for example, Europe and United States take 7 months. So we can understand if something happened, something channel is broken, so it is not good. Must be predicted. The team of stackers, with the help of special machines, unwind the cable of the certain speed, and due to the movement of ship along a pre-laid road. So it is very important how to make this process of lowering these channels more to optimize it more and more, do it more not so expensive and so on. For studying such problems, it is advisable not to create a real physical process network, but to use a mathematical model on the basis of which we can justify the efficiency of future network and decide or to realize such way or to choose another one. A mathematical description of network is typically based on a graph theoretical model where the set of verticals represents the nodes of the network and the set of edges represents the channels connecting them. And network topology, traditionally described as interactive graph without loops or multiply edges. Also, I was talking about that the performance of network is affected by the number of users, of course, transmission media, hardware, and so on. So transit time, response time through output, and some delay. Many works were devoted to the decision of different types of network topologies. Classically, Homory and Hu proposed an algorithm providing a synthesis of network topology and choice of channel capacity. The network designed according to this algorithm enabled transmission of maximum given input flow with a minimum required total capacity over the channel. This optimization via the classical algorithm do not take into the account particular transmission technology. And we, in our previous work, which was reported on the conference large-scale systems in Sozopol last year, we proposed a modified algorithm taking into account the requirements of the dense wavelength division multiplexing technology. The aim of present work is to design a network topology with minimum excess capacity by modifying the Gomory-Hu algorithm in the case when physically realization for some of channels is not available or needs to be avoided. For example, if this cable is in some military area or another some earthquake or what. According to the new General Data Protection Regulation, it is prescribed to implement appropriate technical and organizational measures to ensure a level of security. And in case of physical or technical incident, one should be able to recover all personal data in timely manner, as quick as possible, of course. From our point of view, the best solution is to provide this requirement when developing a backbone network topology is to exclude dangerous lines in the network. For example, as I was talking about, from the military area. Other modified algorithm will help to do this, almost at the cost of slightly exceeding bandwidth. First of all, I will tell some words about classical Homorichu algorithm. The input data is a set of nodes together with the requirement of exchange of information and also intensity of flows that need to be provided between them. Algorithm assumes that these data are represented by non-oriented weighted graph. The weights of the edges, the same as channels, corresponds to the flows to be transmitted. The result of optimization procedure is a weighted graph representing the topology of the network after optimization. The weights of channels represent the channel capacities. Applying the classical Homorichu algorithm, we can find a network topology and capacity of each channels, which transmit the maximum flow. With the same time, the weights of all edges will be minimal. Sorry. The algorithm assumes that according to certain rules, the input graph will be divided into a set of graphs, each of which represents some subnet. All subnets, with exception the last one, which can be a segment connected to only two nodes, are ring subnets with the same weight as each edge of the uniform ring. And afterwards, the superposition of all the resultant subnets, we obtain an optimized network that will feature minimum total capacities of channels. For better understanding, we divide this Homorichu algorithm can be divided into two major stages: decomposition and superposition. Decomposition means that our input graph, yes, we construct from this graph another new one and decomposition this graph A into a ring graph S and I, which include all verticals of graph A, which have edges, and assign to each edge of the ring the weight W minimum divided by 2, where I is the cycle number and W minimum is the minimal weight of the edges of the graph A. A graph B, which is obtained by subtracting the value V minimum from the weight of each edge of graph A, whose weight is positive. If the number of edges in the new graph B is larger than 1, we make some notations, we accept A equal B, and go back to step 3. Otherwise, the decomposition is completed. Afterwards, when we receive the stage when we have only two nodes connected by one channel, we make superposition, which means that we construct the output graph by integration of graphs in which input graph was decomposed. We will explain this to some example. This is example 1. We have 7 nodes, and I will show it on picture. Yeah. And afterwards is the verification is made for maximum flow. In our case, it is, I will show you for a few minutes later, a few seconds later in the graph, for 100 terabytes per second. In the resulting network, this flow can be transmitted simultaneously in the following way. Here, for example, this means that we go from the point 1 to point 2 across the point 7, 6, 5, 4, and 3. So we can calculate this, summarize all this, and we will receive the sum of these flows is 100 terabytes per second. Thus, the maximum input stream is, we transmit it, and with minimum with minimum bandwidth of channels. Here, for example, here we see the input data. We take the minimum is 4. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, and from each edge, which is we take each edges of each nodes of the graph, and we put the minimum divided by 2 here from this ring, and from each edge of input graph, we substitute the value of the minimum and receive such graph. Then secondly, again, we take here the minimum here is 2, and again make the same procedure. This became SN1, this new ring is SN2, and so on. And in such manner, again, this is SN2. Again, we have from here the minimum weight is 4. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. That's why all these weights of these edges is equal to. And we make such procedure one iteratively and stopped here, because here we have only 2 nodes connected by the channel. And then we combine all this to our new graph. And we receive the optimized results obtained by this classical Homer-Ehu algorithm. Now we propose a modification of the classical algorithm in order to select the network topology and the bandwidth of channels according to the criteria of minimum bandwidth in case of possible restriction of the existence of certain channels. Before we start, we must have additional input as a blacklist of unavoidable channels between the nodes of the outer rings. In the classical algorithm, ring subnets are iteratively reconstructed in the course of the decomposition. In the modified algorithm, in each cycle, it is checked whether a channel from the blacklist of unavoidable channels is included to the ring subnet. If such channel is not contained in the blacklist, okay, then algorithm proceeds in the same way as the classical one. Otherwise, we propose to use at this step the topology of the previous ring. Of course, there will be some redundancy, but it will offer a solution that can be implemented, not to stop the wax. The modified algorithm can be also described as following. Again, the same. We specify the output graph, make some construction of graph A, find the minimal weight, minimum, decompose our graph A into the ring graph SN1, which includes all the nodes of graph R, and assigning to each edge the ring of weight, the minimum divided by 2, and a graph B, which is obtained by subtracting the value of the minimum from the edges of graph A, whose weight is possible. If the number of edges in graph B is equal to 1, then we go to the end, to collecting all the results from graph. Then we go to another step, and again we construct a ring graph S and K, which includes all the nodes of graph A, where K is the cycle number which started from 2. And then we compare graphs S and K as nk minus 1 to detect new edge. If the new edge does not appear, we go with, again, find the minimal weight and proceed in previous way. But if this new edge is in our list of forbidden channels, then in this case, we set that S and K is equal as nk minus 1. Yeah. And we proceed in such way till we again have only two nodes in one channel. And then we integrate all graphs of S and K and the graph B. Let us discuss this, show this in the same example as previous time. Also, the verification is performed also for the maximum flow. In our way, it is 100 terabits per second. Resulting networks, we can resultant network we can see here. The sum of these flows is 100 terabits per second. Thus, this network also able to transmit the maximum flow. The connection, for example, the connection between nodes 1 and 5 is not involved, which cannot be physically implemented due to input conditions. Here is the same. We prosper as the same as the classical algorithm till here. Till here, yeah. Yes. Here we see this for this graph. So we make subnets SN1, SN2, and after 2 steps we receive such situation. For this graph, we see that the minimum is 10. Okay, the minimum divided by 2 is 5. But channel 1, 5 is forbidden. That's why we take the same topology in previous time, but we put there 5, weight 5, the minimum divided by 2. And again, subtracting from this weight, subtracting this the minimum. And from this weight, we again, okay, this way is permitted, this way is permitted. So everything okay, we make new subgraph, and only 2 nodes is left. So we can integrate all our graphs to such results. When optimizing according to the classical Harmony-Who algorithm, the total capacity of all channels was 148 terabits per second. But the classical algorithm does not take into account the constraints caused by unavailability of some channels. For automated verification of results, the Harmony-Who algorithm was used to determine the maximum flow in the network. The following below we can see fragments from the implementation of the program for finding the maximum streams for the example discussed above. The results for examples 1 and 2 are respectively shown in figure 3 and 4. In the input data for classical and modified algorithms, the maximum flow value is between nodes 1 and 2, this must be transmitted, is 100 terabits per second. And as we can see in this picture 3 and 4, the optimized topologies provide the same value. Here is, for example, 1. We can see this they provide 100 terabytes per second, and also for example 2. And some conclusions. When we were working upon this work, we were thinking about this possibility. So maybe something happened in this area. There's some earthquake of what, or some military things. But it is in the newspaper, the Sunday Times from February 1622. It was right about how Russia sent intelligence agents to Ireland to pinpoint the exact location of the fiber optic cables on the ocean floor. And the Russian agents checked the cables for weakness in order to be able to interfere with their work in the future. And this cable is very important because they carried internet traffic between United States, Britain, and Europe, allowing millions of people to communicate and to conduct financial transactions without no stops. So as it can be seen that this work is rather important to predict different situation when making or borrowing some these optic cables. Thank you for your attention. I finished.
Thank you indeed. Very interesting and interesting applications also. A short question, if there is. If not, we skip the questions because we are over time, and we go to the thank you again. Thank you symbolically in this way.
Thank you.
Thank
Dziękuję
you
bardzo.
very. Bardzo mi miło.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you, dziękuję. And now the next presentation is delivered by Martin Hunek and Zdenek Pliva from Technical University of Liberec, Czech Republic. And the title is Detection of NAT64 DNS64 by SRV records. Detection using global DNS3 and the word beyond plain text DNS. So please, we are waiting for this presentation.
Okay, so hi, I will surely share the screen if it would work. Okay, so do you all see green?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you very much. So my name is Martin Hunek, and I will talk about the detection of NAT64 DNS64. And first of all, some things about me. I work as a system administrator at the Technical University of Liberec for about 5 years. I'm also L3 network specialist at one of the local ISPs, also network administrator for a second ISP. And my area of interest is mainly IPv6, dynamic routing, Linux, and also flying. So that's all about myself, and now about the topic. So what is actually a NAT64 DNS64? It's a translation mechanism between IPv4 and IPv6. So we can visualize it as a translation from IPv6 on the left-hand side and IPv4 on the right-hand side here at this picture. Here is the schematics of this transition mechanism. The goal is here to have a customer only on IPv6, to have all IPv6 backbone at the ISP, and then that all the customers can access both IPv6 internet and IPv4 internet. The main reason why we are considering these translation mechanisms in the first place is to save money. Having both infrastructures is not money efficient. If you have a dual stack, you have to manage both infrastructures, both IPv4 and IPv6. And also, if you need for every customer the IPv4 address, the public one, then we are talking about also money for the IPv4 range, which is about currently, I think, about 5,000 euros per /24. And also we are talking about costs at carrier grade NATs, which would cost for 40 gig per second about €500,000 each, and you need multiple of those. So that's why we are talking about transition mechanism in the first place. So what is NAT64? It is a transition mechanism between V4 and V6, which allows access of IPv6 devices to IPv4 content. It can be also used vice versa if you do have the IPv4 only content in your network, so you do have a V4 only network. You can also, by this transition mechanism, allow others to access your content by V6. It uses a IPv4 space mapped into IPv6. As you know, the IPv6 address is 128-bit long, and V4 is only 32-bit. So it can fit in. And it requires DNS6.4 for this transition mechanism to work, because you have to be somehow pointed into this range, which translates into v4. So what the DNS6.4 does is that it synthesizes quad A records, the IPv6 records, for services which only have A records, so only accessible on IPv4. It redirects the traffic to NAT64 gateway. So without the DNS6.4, you can't actually use the NAT64. And also the settings are network specific. So you can't just say that every network uses the same pool. So every DNS could provide you with these records. There's also other technology which comes into this process. One is DNSSEC, which ensures the authenticity of the DNS data, but it doesn't provide the secure channel which some detection mechanism requires, which is a quite important thing to consider. And it functions as it would detect manipulation in the records, and DNS6.4 manipulates them. So it had to be properly detected. Other technology which complicates this transition mechanism most currently is DNS over HTTPS. It brings third party into communication, at least in case of Mozilla Firefox, which implemented this this RFC, the RFC 8484. And in this case, the application like Firefox won't use the traditional way this depicted in a solid line here, but it uses the second line on the right-hand side, which communicates directly with the DOH provider via HTTPS server. So in this case, the query doesn't go through the NAT64 box, which is in the traditional way located on the left-hand side, almost at the top. And by not going through the NAT64 box, then the client is not available. The NAT64 is not available for a client. So the problem with DOH is that application doesn't use system resolver anymore. It uses its own resolver, and the DOH resolver differs or could differ in the case of Chrome, but would differ in case of Mozilla from the one which is provided by SP. This way, there is no way for client to detect NAT64 currently. And this efficiently breaks NAT64 DNS6.4 transition. And because of that, client doesn't have v4 connectivity anymore. So it can't access v4 only content. Also, there's a security, sort of security breach because with the DOH, when you are using third party, then you are basically giving data to a provider which wouldn't have them otherwise. There are several solutions for detecting this transition mechanism. Mostly used is RFC 7050, which is easy to run. Basically ask for a domain name which only has a v4 address, and if it receives v6, then there is a NAT64 present. Second one is through the port control protocol, but it's not widely adopted because this port control protocol is not necessary to run the network, so network administrators would have to do additional effort to actually deploy it. So this may be why it hasn't been adapted. There's also the ACPv6 option and also array option, which is currently in the process of getting RFC number. But neither of them are easily usable with third-party DOH, and not especially in the case of the application, not the system resolver. Yeah. So just a small introduction what RFC 7050 does. It uses the query for IPv4 only.arpa, which only has the IPv4 address 192.0.0.170 or 171. And if it receives the reply for this, then there is a NAT64 present. And it also validates this prefix by asking for a reverse record. And then for this reply, also the quote A record once again. In this way, it validates that the record is present. Now, what is not solved in RFC 7050? It requires a secure chain between the client and the server, and there's also not possible to secure DNSSEC form first step. And yeah, someone has unmuted my microphone there. DNS64 had to run on the same DNS server which is used by user and application. This is a huge problem, and this is why it's not suitable anymore. And there is no priority of NAT64 prefixes, but this is not important so much. There are some design goals for method which I've designed. That there had to be no new protocol or alteration of existing one. It had to utilize only widely supported protocols, utilize information only present, must work with foreign DNS, the third party, and must not require DNS64 synthesis on host, must not require provisioning, and must provide secure detection over insecure channel, which is now also the secure channel is also required for the RFC 7050. So what the proposed solution does, it does in 4 steps. There is a local domain detection, either from neighbor discovery, router advertisement, or DAC PV6, PTR record, and fully qualified domain name. There is a secure detection step from SRV records, which are signed by DNSSEC because they are in the ISP zone. There is a validation of synthesized records, and then there is also ability to get a list of DNS64 servers. Here's a SRV record. On the top, there is a typical SRV record as stated in the RFCs, and the proposed SRV records are on the bottom. So the imported one is the first one, which is for detecting NAT64 prefix, and other 2 are for DNS64 services in DNS. Here's a small picture how this process works. Node asks for SRV, gets a reply. It can also have reply in one query in additional section for the prefix. Otherwise, it can ask for them specifically. Same works also on SRV for the DNS64. Process is all the same. All records are signed, so can be validated by node. So now it's about demo time. So I do have one demo here. So what is actually in the zone? So SRV records would look like this. It's in one of my testing DNS zones. Basically, it gives you the name of prefix. And if you ask, for example, authoritative server, you get your reply in the first step. So there would be the NAT64 prefix, which is used in the network. There can be multiple of those. And also they can be sorted by priority of this RV records. So you can choose the preferred one. There is also proof of concept, which is on the GitHub, so you can look at it if you want. So if I ask for the SRV record in my local domain, then there'll be a detection resolving the name of the host and asking for a NAT64. As you can see, there is no NAT64 present here. If I ask for a domain which do have these records, then it detects the prefix used, to which address it's translated, which are optional, with which priority. There's also second NAT64 prefix pool present, and also it can detect the DNS64 servers. In this case, it shows Google DNS64 servers for this well-known pool. Also, if you want to see how the setup on the ISP site looks like, and it's quite easy, you can just append those records for in the zone of the operator and state at least quad A records. And in this case, you are good to go when you do have an NAT64 running. So back to the presentation. So there are some benefits to this detection mechanism. It allows detection from global DNS tree. So every resolver on the internet can know which of the pool is used. So you can use DOH or third-party providers. There is a DNSSEC for step 1 instead of the RFC 7050, which can't secure the first step, because .ARPA zone is not under control of ISP. And there is also DNS64 on request. So if you are not capable of doing synthesis on the host, then you can ask for DNS64 and you will be given one. And it's quite simple in case of DNS search list, or it is also simple to implement in the application, which doesn't have to have access to this information in the operating system. And it's a bit complex logic for detection in the DHCP and PTR and so on. If there are several ways how to detect, so the complexity of this logic would be a bit higher. But the detection, also the detection for PTR record doesn't have to be always available, because you would have to have a dynamic created DNS records for in the PTR zone. And there was also one pitfall, which is that it is a fifth way of detection. So we'll see if IETF would actually adopt it. So the conclusion, it complements other detection methods. It fulfills the design goals I've used. And also there is a running proof of concept, which you can, if you want, you can try it on the GitHub. So that's all for me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Bardzo proszę, panie profesorze, mikrofon jest potrzebny włączyć.
Tak.
Sorry, my mic was not. So thank you again. Well, it's important subject and practical one. So if you have questions, please address it now. I had a message that the next speaker is not present, so we are not in a hurry. We only have questions. Please address them.
Yeah, this is Udo Krieger calling from Bamberg University. Dr. Hunek, thank you for presentation.
Yes, you are here,
Yeah,
Professor.
Okay. My question concerns the means to do a integrity checking of your specification. In the prototype, it was not obvious whether you really integrate integrity for this specification, because others may manipulate intruders, and that's what we should check. So did you prepare for this kind of attack inside the own organization?
Okay, so the thing is that you do have a validation of the prefix, because when you do have a PTR record going through the ISP infrastructure, then the reverse zone can be signed. And also in the specification is written that the records should be assigned.
Yes.
So if you are able to detect your outside IP address, which is not problem for browser, then you can go through the reverse zone, through the signatures to detect NAT64 prefix. And then if you want to validate on also the other records, which are given after that, you can validate those by validating they are inside the NAT64 prefix, which is validated before, and also by validating the A records and prepending to the NAT64 prefix by yourself.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions or remarks on the subject? Oh, yes. If not, thank you again for this nice presentation. And I thank for all participants, all speakers, of course. And we close this session. As it is written in the timetable, coffee and lunch are virtual, and we meet at 2:30. Thank you. If Piotr has any message,
No. Now we have a break. So thank you again, and we will meet together at 2:30 p.m.
Thank you.